Hello, hello. All right, we're going to be started in about a couple of minutes. All right, so the lab that we're working on today is a logical volume manager lab. The instructions that we have are on the bottom right. All right, so as we see here, we have as the instructions is use the credentials and server IP to log into our lab, run sudo-l to become root. Once you logged in, I think that's I, but I think I saw L, but it's sudo-i. We've been tasked with creating a large logical volume. The two disks attached to this server, the volume group, the logical volume name should be pinehead and should be 3 gigabytes in size. Make sure that the resulting logical volume is formatted. After that is completed, we should grow the logical volume and the file system by 200 megabytes. All right, so let me get the credentials and the information so we can log into the server. Okay, so now we're going to log into this server. Let's put the password in. All right, now we're logged in. So now let's do the objectives. And let me reread these objectives, just make sure that they're all good. So the main thing is us to use sudo. So we're going to do sudo-i as for the password. Okay, cool. So now we're root. So we've been tasked with creating a large logical volume out of the two disks attached to the server. The volume group name should be RHCSA. You guys don't see that in the chat. Let me see if I can try to fix this. I'm not sure why it's very terribly formatted. I'll just delete it for now. And I'll just copy that and put that into an actual text file that we could actually read, which would make more sense. So we'll do nano, actually whatever, vi objectives dot text. We're going to enter that. Now we're going to cat this out. As you can see, these are the objectives that we have. So pretty much the volume group name should be RHCSA, and the logical volume name should be pinehead, and it should be around 3 gigabytes in size. After we make it, actually they also want us to make an XFS and persistently mount it at mount lvol, and then we have to grow it. So this would be interesting. Okay, so the first thing we want to do the objectives is we can use ls block, and we can see that we have two disks, which is about 10 gigs right there. All right, from here we want to first, we already got the name, so the first thing we want to do is use pv create. This will create the disks that we want to use, and then the next one is dev xvdg. Or xvdf, I mean. Once we create these two, then we're just going to make the volume group. So let's make the volume group. So VG create, and then we have to give it the actual group name. So it's RHCSA. Then once we do that, we have to specify the disks. And since we already like pretty much use a PV create, these are available for us to use. Now we have the actual volume group created. All right, so the next thing we want to do is create the logical volume. So we can use LV create, and then we want to use -n flag. This one will give it, let us name it. So we're going to name the logical volume pinehead, and then capital L for the volume that we're giving it. So it'll be 3 gigs, and then we have to specify from what volume group we're making it from. Once we do that, we can actually see that now we have pinehead. We can do ls block. We can see that we do have it, but there's no file system. So we can do fsd. As we see here, it's a LVM 2 member, but there is no we don't have any what's the word? We don't have a file system on it. All right, so it looks like you put it on this disk instead. Cool, but they're both in the they're both available in the group, so shouldn't make a big difference. So next thing we want to do, we want to put a file system on it, right? So now all we have to do is use the make fs command, and then we're gonna pick xfs, and then dev mapper or RHCSA pinehead. So the first part of this is the volume group, and then the right side is the logical volume. That's the way these are named. Once we did that, we just made a file system. The next thing is we have to make a directory, because remember, it wants us to have this mounted persistently. And if it's persistently, we have to make sure that we want to get the information on the block ID. So you want to get the UUID. That's the best way. Instead of going by device name, you will always want to get the unique identifier. That's the best way of doing it. Now I'm going to copy this, the unique identifier. We're going to get the UUID, and then we're going to open etcfs tab, which is file system table. And once we open this, type in I, and then we're going to paste this in. Take the commas out, or the double quotes, I mean. So once we take this out, now we're going to specify the mount point, which is mount lvol, and then xfs defaults 0 0. We're going to escape. We're going to save that. Now if we check the file, we should see the new mount point that where we want it to be mounted at. Next thing, we'll do mount A. This is just to make sure that everything is mounted. All right, and then we can also check if it's mounted. We can just do mount command, and then we can grep, and we can check for the one that we just mounted, which is lvol. As we see here, this device is mounted here, which is cool. This is what we wanted. All right, the next thing we have to do, we have to extend it because the lab is asking us to extend it. So we're going to do -L, and then we're going to do plus 200 megabytes because we want to extend it by 200 megabytes. And then now we have to pick the actual location of the device. And once we pick that, you see that we just extended it, but we also have to, actually this is pretty good. Actually, I think we don't have to do this. Usually when you extend it, you also, if you extend the actual partition, you also want to make sure that the actual file system is also resized too, because you're just extending the memory, or basically the amount of data that it's able to use, but you also have to extend the file system. So the other command you could use for this one is growfs, because we're using the XFS. So this command you could use, and this is actually going to extend the file system. All right, and that's pretty much it for today's stream. We're just doing like every day. I'm just doing a lab, and these labs are pretty much made just for practice, more to like Linux concepts and things like that. All right, well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll be ending this stream soon.